This video is sponsored by SKILLSHARE. Today we're going to take a look at 6 pro tips to instantly improve your video game. Making good and entertaining videos is really important nowadays. It's such a strong communication platform and I absolutely love it. A lot of people think that making good video is due to the camera, and although that does help, it's totally not true. It's not a must to have a good camera. The first thing you should credit when seeing a good video is not the camera but the talent behind the camera. He is the one bringing the story. Alright, so let's take a look on how to improve your video game. Tip number 1, lighting. A quite obvious one, but light is such an important role for the final result of your video. How your subject catches light and shadows, but also because most cameras lose detail when shooting in the dark. Working with light doesn't need to be hard, although I'm working currently with a softbox and totally not an expensive one, but I'm using some light in my room because I don't have any windows, but you can definitely use windows. Move to a place if you're shooting indoors close to the window and you're going to get really nice natural light. It's really going to bring your scene to life. And if you want, you can bring a reflector to the other side of your face. If the window is right here, you can bring a reflector right here, so the window is actually reflecting on the other side, so your other side of your face is also going to get filled in. If you have a white room, that does help because it already is going to reflect a lot more than darker rooms. But if you have a dark room, use some reflectors, and with reflectors I mean just some white cardboard is going to get the job done. Use the LED light of your smartphone and that's already going to help a ton. Depending on the video you want to produce, make sure that you're working with soft light or hard light to help and bring the story. So if you're shooting an action kind of short film, hard light is going to help, but if you're shooting weddings or something romantic or something like comedy, it's not really going to help. In some occasions it might, but just make sure that you're working with natural soft light. So windows are going to give you a soft, nice light. If you're shooting at day, just make sure that you're shooting in the morning or the evening or on a cloudy day. And if you're using the LED light of your smartphone, just make sure you're not moving too close to the subject so you don't get hard shadows. The farther you move your light, the less intense it will be, but also the softer the light will be cast on your subject. You can also use some kind of fire if you're shooting your subject at night. You can use a torch or some kind of candle. You can do some really cool stuff with just practical things that you actually use to tell your story, but also help to brighten up your subject. If you're shooting on a sunny day and you have the sun behind the subject, use a reflector to catch the light from the sun back to the subject. And if you're shooting it that way, it's going to look very high dynamic range, very cinematic, because you actually have a lot of light in your scene because of the reflected sun and the sun behind your actor. It's a really nice way to play with natural light. You can also use some tin foil if white cardboard isn't enough. Another part of light is not to just brighten up your scene, but you can also use light to help and set the mood. Use some colored light, or if you're just in a room, set on all the lights and candles and it's going to set a mood. If you have a lot of detail in your shot because of all the lights and all the small corners, it's just going to bring your scene to life. And if you pay attention to films or soaps, you're going to see that once they enter their house, all the lights are suddenly turned on and all the candles, even if they're alone, in some cases they will have a ton of light in their room. And I wouldn't do that. If I get home, I would just set out my one light and I wouldn't turn on all the candles and all the little lamps I have in my room. But it really helps to bring your scene to life, and it definitely works on the big screen. So if you have light in your room, just make sure that you turn all of them on, depending again on the mood you're trying to set. But if you're filming for real estate, for example, and you're filming a room, if you just turn on the lights next to the bed and stuff like that, it's just going to give you a little bit more details. Number 2 is set designing, and we already talked about this a little bit while we were talking about lighting, because turning on some of the lights is also set designing. It doesn't need to take too much time, but just adding in a few elements of your own in your scene can really have a big impact. It makes the scene so much more interesting. Look at it this way. Big film companies, they have a department for every part of filmmaking, and you probably go outside, film for a day and edit for a day. Let's round it up for now, but why wouldn't you take and spend some time in the set designing and how you will bring the light and how you will tell the story? Because if you're looking at these film companies, they have a department for every step of the filmmaking process. Writing, storyboarding, location scouting, set designing, costume designers. and much more. The reason why so many films look so cinematic and so beautiful is thanks to a lot of factors, but the location is definitely playing a big role here. Also, try to match some colors in your scene. You're going to see that if you're looking at movies, they're going to try and they're really going to pay close attention to the colors they are using in their scene, which color the car has or which color the room has and which clothes the actor is wearing is a really important step to getting the cinematic look. And it also helps with the mood of your story. One of the most exaggerated films, and once I started paying attention to it, it's kind of getting out of hand, I suppose, is Iron Man. And I'm not saying this in a bad way, it's just for educational purposes, but they're really matching their scene colors with blue and orange, and this is a very popular choice. But you're going to see that even the clothes they're wearing, or the actress, the girlfriend from Iron Man, her hair is orange, and that's not just because of her acting skills, but just her looks are adding the mood of their scene. Having the orange hair, and she probably wore a lot of blue because that's the opposite of orange, and that just makes it look cinematic. There was also this one scene, and the room was just filled with orange and blue items, and it was just exaggerated, but this is giving you a really great idea on how much time and effort they are spending to get the scene to look cinematic. Tip number 3, parallax. You have the opportunity to make a film, so why only use a tripod? I'm not saying you shouldn't use a tripod. You can do some really cool things with a steady image, but sometimes you can shake it up a bit. If you're filming something, add a little bit of movement with your camera. Definitely if your subject is not moving or there isn't much going on in your scene, to make it look interesting is adding movement by your own, using the movement of your camera, doing some dolly shots or just walking through whatever it is you're doing. Adding movement with your camera is going to help you to get a cinematic look. You can get away with a tripod shot if there is a lot of things going on in your scene, like if you're in a city and there are a lot of people passing by, you can get away with a steady shot because the people are actually the things that are moving in your shot. If you're filming mountains on a tripod, it's just going to look like a picture with a bit of cloud movements and a little bit of grain, but apart from that, it's going to be a picture, so you really need to add movement in that shot to make it look as a video, and that's the opportunity you have, so why not use it? It's going to give you a more finished look. Alright, so the movement isn't really going to help you with the parallax effect, but now let's think about the set designing and add something in front of your camera in the foreground, like a plant for example, and just use that plant to add some parallax to your scene because it's so close to the camera and your subject is further away from your camera. You're going to get a nice parallax effect, and it's going to help and bring depth to your scene, and depth is also going to help to give you a cinematic feel. A little bonus tip and today's sponsor. SKILLSHARE is an online learning community with over 13,000 classes in many different categories. The value of SKILLSHARE is that you're allowed to watch as many classes as you want without having to pay for each individual one. They have great classes in filmmaking, motion graphics, design, and much more, and I would definitely encourage you to check it out. And if you use the coupon code TOLERATED, you get 2 months for free. So definitely check it out with the link in the description, and you have 2 months of free education, and if you like it, you can stay a little longer. Alright, tip number 4 is framing. Framing your video. There are a lot of videos about this topic, but the most popular one is using the rule of thirds. This is where you have a grid showing you where to place your subject, and this is like the most common way of composing your shot, and it's going to give you a good result, but you have many other different ways to get a good composition. I would definitely encourage you to look up as many things about this, test a lot of things in your composition, and of course you can break the rules. That's what makes things more interesting, but if you're starting out, just follow along with the rules until you understand them completely and then start breaking them. Also, the angle you're using is helping to bring the story. For example, if you have a low angled camera looking up on you, you're going to be strong, you're going to be like the enemy, or you're going to be like Superman, and you're going to look invincible. On the other hand, if you have your camera looking down on you, it's going to look like you're afraid or you don't stand a chance. It's going to give you a trapped feeling. Again, there are many other different ways why you should use these angles, but these are the most popular ones. Having your camera on eye level when filming a subject, and I'm not talking only about humans, but if you're like filming a subject, bringing your camera down to the eye level of that subject subject is also going to give you better results. And a great example, if you're filming people, is parents, how they film their children. They're standing and they're having their camera, they're looking down on their children and filming them playing around, and it's going to look like a fun family video. But if you want to give this a cinematic feeling, just lower your camera to the eye level of the children, and filming them that way is going to give you a very cinematic shot. Tip number 5 is depth of field, and this is also a really cool one. Having depth of field is also going to give depth to your scene. That is where your background is out of focus and your subject is sharp. So you have a very blurred background, and that's also going to help to grab the attention from your audience, so they're only looking at the sharp part of the image, in this case our subject. So you're guiding your audience where to look at, and also you're going to get a sense of depth. Getting depth of field can be done in many different ways. The first way of doing it, if you have a lens that you can zoom in with, zoom in all the way with your lens, focusing on your subject, and that should already help with giving you a blurred background. Then having a faster lens is also going to help, where you have a very wide aperture. I'm not going too much into detail, but if you have a fast lens like I have the Sigma f1.8, the lower the number, the more depth of field you're going to get when focusing on your subject. Having a far background is also going to help. If you're filming yourself with low aperture and zooming in all the way, but the background is just 1 meter away, it's not really going to be very blurred. But if that wall would be 10 meters away, the wall will probably be more blurred. So definitely have a play with that. Tip number 6 is sound. A lot of starting video makers, they film something and then they just add a cool soundtrack and they're done. And although that can work in some occasions, having the sound effects of everything that's going on in your scene on top of your music is also going to give a really big impact. The way to getting good sound is just moving your microphone as close as you can to the subject or to the sound that actually is playing in your scene. But really close your eyes and think of all the sounds you would hear in that specific scene. Like if you're outdoors and in a forest, you would hear maybe some birds, some wind through the trees. You would hear the footsteps of the subject walking through the forest. Maybe you would hear him like breathe. For example, in my previous video, I had someone smoking from behind, and by no means that would say that you have to start smoking to make a cool image, because I don't smoke and I'm not planning to, so I'm not trying to give you an unhealthy lifestyle, but this is just a great example. I have my actor from behind, you see him smoking, but in the original shot you didn't hear it, so I added fake sound effects where you hear him inhaling his cigarette. So take a close listen to the original shot. And here it is with the sound effects applied to it. It does sound a lot better, doesn't it? So think of all the sounds you would hear in that scene and just record them separately. So after you are done filming, just move close to these specific sounds. Like for his footsteps, just record that separately. For the breathing, record it separately. The ambient of the scene, be quiet and record it for a few seconds. And then in your editor, you would bring all the sounds together in the right timing and you would get a lot better results. You can do this in many different ways, moving your camera very close if you're recording with the original microphone of your camera, which is in most cases not as good. I'm using the Rode VideoMic Pro. I'm currently recording my video with it, and as you can see, I have my microphone right here and it does sound a lot better the closer it is to my voice. I could actually put it on my camera, but my camera is right now like 1.5 meters away. This is a little bit too far to get good quality audio, so I'm using an extension cable right here to get my microphone as close as I can, and I still wanted it to be connected to my camera so I don't have to do this later in my editor to bring all the sound together. I just bring in my video and my sound would already be there, and the GH4 really handles sound very good. You can also use an external recorder, but then again you would have to bring your sound together in your editor. Although it's a lot better, I just don't have a lot of time because I'm doing daily uploads. I also want to look at how easy it is to set up, so that totally depends on you. And let me actually put this back on its position right here. So yeah, bring some sound in your video, and this is actually a completely different video. If you want me to go more in depth about sound, let me know in the comments below. If you like this video, give it a like, and also if you aren't already, be sure to subscribe to my channel for more videos. Alright, so that's it for today, and see you in the next one. Goodbye.